right, welcome to the show. This is Chris with Protect Your Children Incorporated. We're glad that you are here. We are doing a second week on Zachary Bernhardt, missing child since 8 years old, back on September 11th of 2000. And we've received so much information the last week since last week's show. We had a generous donation and we promoted the content of last week as well as our summary investigation video, which you can find on our social media and on our website, protectyourchildren.org. And hundreds of comments, former co-workers, friends of Leah, lots of great opinions, couple things, couple connections that we didn't think of. And we're so thankful for that. Our goal, our goal is to not necessarily place blame at this point. Our goal is to locate Zachary, or at least help Zachary locate help. That's the goal, right? And with everybody who tunes in and everybody who shares the content and everybody who comments, shares their opinion, shares connections, what they see, it helps. It makes a difference. And a lot of people are very skeptical. They're saying 24 years later, almost 24 years, it'll be 24 years in September. And a lot of people are saying, he's most likely dead. Yeah, he would have come home by now. He would have contacted somebody. He would have wanted to know, about things that are important in his family and stuff like that. It's not that clear cut. It is not that clear cut. This child, according to what the police believe, was put into the sex industry. I can't say the other part, but he was 8 years old. You can figure that out. And if that's the case, then there is so much shame connected. It's not his fault, of course, but he would feel it. There is certainly fear of having to talk about or exposing the people that were involved that got him into that trade. There is a very good indication that there's been threats made, maybe against people that he cares about, so he would stay quiet. I mean, there's lots of reasons. Unfortunately, he could be on drugs and alcohol. I mean, going through a life like that, and may not even be able to comprehend what the heck happened. Maybe he doesn't remember. There's lots of reasons why he wouldn't just come forward. Maybe protecting people. That's another one of the theories, that he's protecting family members potentially, right? From prosecution, right? I mean, he already didn't have a dad. And if he thinks there's a possibility that his mother will get in trouble, or his grandmother, or his aunt, he's not going to come forward and talk. He's just not going to. So we will continue to investigate this. It's hard to do because the Clearwater police are not doing anything straight up. I was going to say that. The Clearwater police have this marked as an open case, which means no information is available to the public except what they release. We kind of understand that because, they don't want to mess up their own case. But the reality is that they're not investigating this case anymore. Zach, like thousands of other kids, has fell by the wayside. There's no room full of detectives dedicated to searching for these kids. There just isn't. And it's up to organizations like Protect Your Children and others and other podcasters to keep his name out there and keep the pressure on the police and keep the pressure on anybody who might be involved so that this case does not get forgotten. It's been almost 24 years. And as we'll show you later, we've reached out to Clearwater Police. They will not tell us a darn thing. And they can vet people. They can vet me and the other directors in the organization. They can find out that we're safe, that we're on the good side here, and we're trying to help locate Zach. But they don't want to take the time to do that. So it is an uphill battle. But we believe that with enough exposure, and if people have the courage, they'll speak. Whether it's anonymously or right there on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, everywhere else that we're posting this, they'll speak. And they'll say, hey, I remember this. I remember that. Hey, wait a minute. That story wasn't what we were told. We had a lot of that this past week from former co-workers of Leah, speaking about how her story to them was different than what she told the police. But this is what we need to continue to do, is bring awareness and not forget. And we appreciate everybody that's here helping to do that, because it's a battle. Before we jump in here, let me share with you our website, protectyourchildren.org, protectyourchildren.org. We have an in-depth protection packet, which is right up in here. This is a protection packet of guidelines that will help keep your kids safe from predators online and in the community. They are detailed. They're not one-liners. These are warnings and lookouts for parents, warnings and lookouts for kids, personality traits of predators, how to keep your kids safe online. Whole lot of great information right there in our in-depth protection packet. You can click on that and you can view it or download it in English or Spanish. Zachary Bernhardt has his own section on this website right here. All the videos that we've done, podcasts, are all right there on that page. All of our live shows or podcasts are available right here. Listen to our weekly live show. They're in date order. So you can click there, listen at any time. You can share that page for parents that want to keep their kids safe, or their grandkids, their niece and nephews safe. Heck, for parents that want to keep their neighbor kids safe, right? They can click there and listen to the protection podcasts. We want to tell you that if you have not subscribed to our monthly newsletter, you're missing out. You are missing out the first week of every month, which means this week, probably tomorrow night or Friday, that will go out for June. That newsletter contains education information, some awareness, different links, updates on the organization, things we're working on. And it's a good way for us to keep connected. So if you haven't subscribed to our monthly newsletter, please do so by going to our website and clicking right there, and subscribe to our monthly newsletter. We will not spam you and we will not share your information. 1 or 2 emails, maybe a month. So you'll be happy to know that. You won't be getting emails from India or for all these things that you don't need after you subscribe to our email. That will not happen because we will not share your address. Finally, our social media. All our social media links are on our homepage. If you want to click and follow us, like us, subscribe, that helps us to get the information out further. All right, let's go right into, let's jump right into now, usually we do a hero segment, right? A hero teen segment where we highlight a teenager who's doing great things, maybe rescued somebody or making an impact in the world. A hero that is unselfish, a hero that has made an impact in lives. But tonight we want to share with you a story of a man who, as a baby, was kidnapped, sold, and went through what they call a black market adoption. And that is one of the theories about what happened with Zachary, by the way. This man went through a black market adoption, which basically means it was an adoption that was done kind of off the books, and went and got adopted, apparently had a decent life. 32 years later, he's on a missing child's website, and he finds his photo, age progression photo that looks strikingly like him. And he finds out that he was kidnapped 32 years ago. So we don't want to hear anything about there's no chance of Zach being found. It's been too long. You guys are wasting time, wasting money. because we believe that there's always hope. Until, God forbid, we receive news confirmed that there's no more reason to look, we will continue to look and search for Zachary. He deserves that. For the members of his family and friends that truly don't know what the heck happened, they deserve that kind of peace and that closure. Justice needs to be served. And we want to help that to take place. So, anyway, let's look at this guy who found himself on a website 32 years later. Here's hope for you.
A year ago, a Philadelphia man clicked on a website for missing children and found a picture of himself. That sent him on a search to unlock the secrets of his past.
People magazine first brought his emotional journey to our attention. Terrell Brown is here to pick up this story. Terrell, good morning.
Erica, Charlie, good morning to you both. Steve Carter always knew he was adopted, but when he got older, he started to wonder who his biological parents were. That curiosity and a simple web search took him on a journey that would change his life. And even today, there are parts of his story that remain a mystery. Carlina White was kidnapped as a baby from a Harlem hospital nearly 25 years ago. When police announced that not only had she been found, but she had solved her own kidnapping, the case made national news. Steve Carter was watching, and it got him thinking. While he's always been happy with his adoptive parents, something never felt quite right.
Just recently, it got more to the point where, wow, I really wonder who my birth parents are.
Carter knew he was adopted from a Hawaiian orphanage when he was 4, but his birth certificate was created almost a year after his birth, and he's labeled half native Hawaiian.
I don't really have many of the features of a native Hawaiian.
Yeah, blonde hair, blue eyes.
Blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, there are a couple, but it's very far and few between.
On a hunch, he went to the website missingkids.com and searched the database. He looked through pictures of children reported missing in Hawaii in the past 34 years. And then you see a picture. Who is it?
My first thought was, oh my God, that's me.
The picture is an adult composite of what Mark's Panama Barnes, a 5-month-old missing baby, would look like at 26 years old. This is Steve Carter at 34 years old. Their birthdays, 1 day apart. Their birthplaces, identical. Carter emailed the picture to his adoptive mother.
And she's like, oh my God, that's you. I was like, that's what I thought. And she's like, but it can't be you. There's no way you could have been missing at 6 months and we'd be able to legally adopt you at 4.
Carter called Honolulu police and the department set up a DNA test. Nearly a year later, it was proven. Mark's Panama Barnes is Steve Carter.
And that's when it really started to sink in that I've got another family.
A family with a mystery. Carter learned his biological mother disappeared with him in 1977. She changed his name, his birthday, even the race of his father. When Carter's biological father reported mother and son missing 3 weeks later, police couldn't connect the dots. Carter would end up in an orphanage, his biological mother in a psychiatric hospital. She later vanished without a trace. To this day, do you know where your biological mother is?
No one does.
But Carter did find his biological father. In a small town in Northern California, Mark Barnes remembers the feeling of hearing his son's voice for the first time since he disappeared more than 3 decades ago.
He introduced himself over the phone, and I was absolutely, positively thunderstruck and amazed. And we just sort of, in an hour conversation, tried to catch up on 32 years.
Barnes says Carter's biological mother would often leave with him, but always return. Although he never stopped searching for his son, he wishes he reported them missing sooner.
Not one day went by when he wasn't in my thoughts.
Carter hasn't seen his father or any of his newly found blood relatives in person. It's still too soon. In the meantime, he's piecing together his childhood, a cold case closed, and one of the longest missing child cases in U.S. history solved.
Wow, 32 years. Now, these black market adoptions do happen. And that is one of the theories in the Zachary Bernhardt case that, well, we'll get into those in a little bit, but that's one of the thoughts that could have happened, that Zach is actually living under a different name. And maybe doesn't realize it, or is staying quiet about it. In any case, it does happen. We had the 3 girls that were gone for 10 years and they were found. There is always hope. There is always hope. And like we said, our goal is not to place blame, and there's a lot of that. We want to stir up questions. We want people to start thinking about this case. We want people to start doing their own research on it, to start posting about Zachary, so that it keeps the pressure on the people that might know something. Certainly the police will come across things if they ever decide to start investigating the case again, and they'll see that there's a whole lot of people that are looking and trying to find Zach still. Maybe they'll take a fresh look at the case. But it doesn't matter. It's been almost 24 years. He can still be found. And, you know, a lot of people ask us why. And we've talked about that before. We've talked about the time when some people with our organization were face-to-face with Leah within the same week that Zach had disappeared, and their interactions with her, where she was not crying, she was not frantic, she was not upset. She was literally excited to see what our people had to give her. And I'll tell you, when you hear that, it just makes your blood boil. Because you only think 2 things at that point. Either 1, she's a pure psychopath who feels nothing, or 2, she really knows that her son's okay, or she thinks that he is. Right? So she's not worried. But we're going to get into that as we move along. Let's jump into this News Nation clip. This News Nation clip, and by the way, that previous clip was brought to you by CBS in the morning, as you've seen. And certainly, if anybody has any comments, thoughts, make sure you put it in the chat. We know that certain platforms, we cannot see your comments that you post. We can't see them right here on the dashboard of the live show, but we will see them afterwards and we will reply as we always do. But for YouTubers and Facebook people and Twitter people, I believe we can see your comments right here on the dashboard. And we'll be showing some of those on the air, right there on the screen. While you're listening to these clips and hearing about this case, please look closely at these pictures that are on your screen. We will be looking at each one individually. Obviously, the center row is all Zachary, age progression from the left side to the right. 8 years old, all the way up to some age progression photos. We couldn't fit them all in there because it's been almost 24 years. And then on the bottom, take a close look at the bottom 3, because that is a very interesting similarity between those faces. But right now, let's get into this News Nation report on Zach. Gives a very good summary. It's 4 minutes long, and then we'll come back and we'll go further into the players that are close to this case. Let's check this out. News Nation.
8-year-old Zachary Bernhardt vanished from Clearwater, Florida in the early hours of September 11th, 2000. Not a single piece of credible evidence has been shared with the public in more than 2 decades until now. News Nation Live anchor Marnie Hughes has the latest on this story in our Missing series.
This is Zachary. It's the little boy we're looking for right now.
September 11th, 2000.
Okay, go help us find Zach.
The Clearwater community flooding the streets looking for 8-year-old Zachary Bernhardt.
He's always had a smile, a wonderful smile. He was a yes ma'am, no ma'am type individual. He's a good boy.
That good boy went to sleep in his mother's bed Sunday night. His mother, Leah, who worked overnights, kept her sleeping schedule. Then around 4 a.m., she says she left the apartment unlocked and went for a brief swim. When she got home, a warm shower. Then she says she checked, and Zachary was gone.
They called us on the phone, Leah did, and said Zachary was missing. So we just thought he was hiding over there in the apartments.
Zachary's grandmother still remembers how quickly they thought this would be over. That all changed with police and agents swarming and canvassing, looking by air, through the brush, and even with wave runners.
We're hoping it would work out, but as the days progressed, it just became very, very long, all and consuming days of trying to, follow up every imaginable lead to try to locate him.
And we want him to come home. We're all here waiting, so please don't stop looking for Zach.
Leah permanently ducked from public view days later, leaving many wondering about that 4 a.m. swim and swirls of talk about her lifestyle. At the core of it all, a community deeply in pain.
I'm feeling madness. I'm feeling really bad, sad.
Then the apartment complex thrust into the unthinkable again. The year after Zachary's disappearance, a man in a white pickup truck lures 3 boys with talks of treats. A 5-year-old wanders closer and is snatched. The boy found alive in a dumpster 10 hours later, nearly 80 miles away. That case never solved.
There's the theory that Zachary might have been a first attempt, and if you successfully get away with that, well, you get a little bit bolder. Maybe I can do this in broad daylight.
Then Kevin Jalbert enters the picture, telling an acquaintance he kidnapped a child from the Savannah Trace apartments. Police investigate and find no ties to Zachary. Jalbert goes to prison on 60 counts of child pornography, attempted murder, and attempted kidnapping. It all leaves decades-old questions for the family.
Even though the police department has said that they ruled them out, there's still things that I wonder myself about.
No one's been excluded, so it's an open investigation. So we just kind of take us where the evidence leads us.
The evidence leading to Mexico, where this drifter gets the attention of social media in the Ocampo area. Many see a striking resemblance to the age progression photo of what 30-year-old Zachary might look like now.
Honestly, my heart dropped. My heart stopped when I saw that picture, and not much has fazed me over the years.
You can't deny there is a resemblance, and it's very intriguing. Whoever this man is, we need to find out who he is.
Clearwater police telling News Nation they've gotten no traction from the 2-year-old photos, and another gauntly thin sighting in Mexico. And with the family still in pain, the chief candid about how Florida's longest-running Amber Alert cuts to the core.
I stomach a little guilt, probably more than anything, that I just wasn't able to bring closure.
Marnie Hughes, News Nation.
And if you have any information on Zachary Bernhardt, please contact the Clearwater Police Department. That phone number is on your screen.
One of the things that we just caught a little bit earlier, actually reviewing some of the material for tonight, the grandmother was on the left side, and she said, they called us. She said, they called us, Leah did. I don't know. Is that a slip up or is that, who knows? But she said, they called us. Like, who's they? And then she said, Leah did. Leah's the mom. But I don't know. That's just a weird thing. And we're going to look at the Mexico man, the one from Ocampo. We investigated that thoroughly, and we're about to get it into high gear again. But, yeah. Very, very strange case. Leah, again, talking to the press. I don't know. What do you think? Seems kind of emotionless. Maybe she's in shock. We look at the grandma who was standing to the right of her, behind her, not crying, not weeping. The person to the left of her, I'm not sure who that is, but she was clearly shaken, visibly upset. But I don't know. I think that when you have a child that's they believe was taken by a predator in the middle of the night, I don't know. How do you not be crying and upset? It's very odd, we think. So, but we look for your comments, what you think about that. It's very, very strange. All right, here we go. Let's look at the players. Just want to remind you really quick before we start that on our website, Zachary Bernhardt Missing, all the videos, information. Now, listen, we hold back some things. We are still pursuing some angles, which we are not going to release to the public because we are still looking into them. And of course, you never know who's watching or listening. So we want to not shoot ourselves in the foot here. But if you go to our website, protectyourchildren.org/Zachary Bernhardt Missing, you will see all the videos and information that we have done with Zach. So this here is Leah Hackett. A lot of you seen her this past week because we posted her picture on our social media. And here she is smiling, clearly moved on with her life. You know, it's always a weird thing because we understand that in some cases where, you know, at some point maybe a mom gives up hope, right? We're not going to pretend to know what she's going through or be in her shoes. But sometimes, yeah, you give up hope and you just assume that you're never going to see your child again. And then you move on with your life and you try to do the best you can with your life and to be a good mother to more kids. And you try to live a life that Zach will be proud of, as she has stated. Maybe that's what she's doing, right? Or maybe she's so happy going on with her life. She has an LLC. She's married. She has another child. And, you know, maybe the reason why she's so happy is because she knows that Zach is okay. It's a possibility, right? That maybe she hasn't just given up. Maybe she knows that he's all right. Or she thinks that he is. Who knows? But in any case, this is her smiling face. She's got, look at Zach's got her eyes, her mouth. The features are all there. I will tell you that this is what's interesting. Leah Hackett, this is her eviction. She got evicted 6 days before Zach disappeared. She got an eviction notice. And this was like, I believe, the 11th place that she lived in like 14 years. And Zach was only like 8. So that just kind of tells you the rough life that he had. And all these people that are out there like the aunt talking about how when she had to be a mother, she was a mother and this and that. And she was a great mom. I'm sorry, but if you have moved 11 times in 14 years, something's not going right. Okay? You hear me out there? But anyway, this is Savannah Trace Apartments where she lived in Clearwater with Zach. And if you look down the bottom, case filed September 5th of 2000. Case filed. This is the eviction that was filed with the courts. And then 6 days later, Zach disappears. Well, as you can see, this prolonged out until August 28th, 2001. And then they actually dismissed the case against her. So she didn't have to pay any money. No doubtedly, that was connected to the fact that her son ended up missing. I just realized how small that was. I'm going to just enlarge this for you a little bit. But look at that. So I want you to remember 6 days, okay? So September 5th, she gets the eviction notice. And 6 days after that, all of a sudden, Zach is gone. She stays in the apartment for a little longer and then drops off the radar. Okay? This is where she shared with the news, whether we just saw this a little bit in the video, but this is her plea for them to bring Zach back. Hold on one second. There we go.
Now there's a family as she spoke.
Anyone who has ever met Zach has loved Zach. The support of the community has shown us how much Zach is loved. We miss him. We love him very much, and we want him to come home. We're all here waiting, so please don't stop looking for Zach and help bring Zach home.
Okay. So she does her plea to bring Zach home, never stop looking for Zach. Okay. And that's it. That's all she did. I believe that the police did a walkthrough with her to have her confirm her story one more time. That video is out there somewhere. Interestingly, we can't find it no more. And she talks about how she went outside for a walk to the pool at 4 a.m. in the morning. She jumps in, she swims from one side of the pool to the other, and she gets out, she goes home, she goes back in the house, up the stairs, it's cold, so she jumps in the warm shower, she gets out of the shower, and she realizes that Zach is no longer in her bed. Now, the way these apartments are set up is you went up the stairs, and you go into the apartment, and then there's a second set of stairs where you go upstairs to her bedroom. There's a bathroom connected to that bedroom, the master bedroom. And apparently Zach was in that bed. So we don't know if when she was on her way up to the shower that she walked past the bed and saw him there or didn't look. But in any case, she says she was gone no longer than 15 minutes. She left the door unlocked. She did not bring a towel. She didn't bring a bathing suit. Nothing. Just decided to go for a swim. Just decided to go for a swim in the middle of the night. All right. Story sounds fishy. Now, there are some stories and actually lots of reports that she was a partier, that she was using drugs and alcohol. So listen, somebody could be taking something. Might also have been jumping the pool in the middle of it. Into that complex. Did the walk to the pool. It's a few minutes. And we know it's locked on the gate. Some residents there told us that the people lock the pool every night. Earlier, we had some comments on a Facebook post from someone who lived there saying that they never locked. There was no lock on it at that time. But that's here or there. Either you believe the story or you don't, right? But that's what she claimed. And from some former coworker where she had told a story. That he was home and she got up the next morning to get Zach up to go to school, and he was in his bed. Well, that's what she told the police. So again, we're not trying to blame here. We're just trying to figure out who's behind this, because that can find Zach. This case for a while. About a year or so later, New Year's Eve, 2001, there was another boy that was taken from the complex. You heard about that. This boy was taken in broad daylight. Guy driving a pickup truck goes to the playground, offers them ice cream or candy or whatever. It was reported that the vehicle had ice cream symbols on the side of it. And they pull up there, and one of the boys goes forward to get some ice cream, and the guy grabs the boy, 5 years old, grabs him, takes off with him. The boy is found 80 or 90 miles away, alive, in a dumpster, had been abused, but was alive. So he gets returned back to his family, thank God. And they think maybe this connects to Zach's case. They're looking at the MO. It's totally different, right? Zach in the middle of the night, in the dark of night, no DNA anywhere, no struggle, no witnesses, no nothing. Just Zach disappeared. That's exactly how the police talked about it. There's no evidence of a crime at all. They said the DNA that was in the apartment was consistent with whoever was supposed to be there. There was no struggle, no break-in. Neighbors who were up. There was a neighbor who was up that was having a birthday party all night long for her boyfriend. Didn't hear any screams. Nothing. The police said there's nothing, just Zach's gone. Which is very, very strange. Very strange. So the police released a sketch of this man who kidnapped the boy. And I believe I have that for you. Here it is right here. Okay. This is the sketch. Okay. Of the man. And that's what we got, right? Here's the guy. The boy says that the man had black stringy hair. This is black long hair, combed back. And this is the image that they released to the public. Okay. That's what they got. Now, moving on. Savannah Trace Apartments, okay? Now, well, before we move on, I will tell you that we had an interview with the mom of that boy. You can find that on the podcast archives. She came on the show, very brave to do so. Me and her talked privately, extensively about her son and the struggles that he is going through because of what happened. You can only imagine. And she informed me that she decided to sue Savannah Trace Apartments. And the reason being was because after Zach disappeared, they were supposed to make some security upgrades. They were supposed to close one of the gates that you can go in and out of. They were supposed to put cameras. They were supposed to make all these changes that were just, was going to prevent another child from being kidnapped, right? Well, as of a year or so later, come New Year's Eve, 2001, this boy gets taken. The mom realizes that they didn't do the security upgrades. So a year or so later, she decides she's going to sue Savannah Trace Apartments for negligence. She's going to say, look, you guys are supposed to make security upgrades. If you had made them, my son would have never gotten kidnapped, and this wouldn't have happened. So she takes them to court, and she sues them. Okay? Now, we've crossed out the names to protect, obviously, the parties. And you can see right here, the defendant is Savannah Trace Apartments. All right, Landmark Residential, King Savannah Trace. Interesting, they got 3 different names. And then the plaintiffs was her and her son. So this was filed April 22nd, 2004. Okay, so she files this lawsuit, okay, against Savannah Trace. And she fills us in on the how the case went. As you can see at the bottom of this, the final order of dismissal with prejudice. June 21st, 2005, they basically dismissed the case and say, nope. So they ruled in favor of Savannah Trace Apartments. Okay? Now, as she shares with us, some of the stuff that took place there was the lawyers of Savannah Trace Apartments. Their defensive argument was that they were not liable because Zachary was not kidnapped by a stranger. Savannah Trace's lawyers were arguing that the complex had knowledge that Zach's case was not a random kidnapping. And in fact, according to their lawyers at the time, that Zachary got caught up in something with his mother and that she owed money for drugs to a member of the family or a friend of the family. And there was a deal made that in order for her to continue to be able to see her son, because the family did not want the son, Zachary, living with her, that she basically had to let someone else raise him and raise him right in exchange for her drug debt to be forgiven, or they were going to go to the police. That was the argument that Savannah Trace used in this case. And when you know, the court found in favor of Savannah Trace. So the court obviously believed that there was some merit to that story. That this wasn't just a random person that came in and took a child out of the apartment complex. Now, of course, the second boy, that seemed to be random. And there has been upgrades done since then. But with Zachary, Savannah Trace was saying, hey, we know what was going on there. The mom couldn't pay her rent. There was all this stuff going on. She had a drug addiction, and they won the case. So make of that what you will, but it's very interesting. And I will tell you that when we hear from people in regards to this case, we do check out everything. We will not put something out, number one, without their permission, and number two, without verifying that it's accurate and authentic. Because there are people that will just make up stuff and run with it just for whatever crazy reason, right? So we did look this up. There's the case, and that is exactly what happened. Let's move on to another player. And by the way, when we say player in here, we're not trying to indicate that this is a game, okay? We're not saying that this is a game. What we're saying is that these are the people that were close to the case. These are the people that all should be looked at, right? All these different people that were part of this all have something that needs to be said and should be looked into deeply. Now, we feel like the police did not look into people in the way that they had to, because the amount of information that we have found out and stuff that we put together, like, you would have to think that the police detectives would have figured this out and put this together already. And maybe they have, but of course we'll never know because they don't talk about it because it's an open case. This here is Carol Bernhardt. This is Zachary's grandmother. One of the theories is that Zach's grandmother knows what happened. Okay, that's one of the theories. That she knows what happened. Either Leah told her or she had intimate knowledge of the way this went down. And she's just straight up not talking about it. To protect her own daughter, to protect maybe herself, other members of the family, maybe to protect Zach, who knows? That's a theory. We're not accusing anybody of anything here. But Carol Bernhardt, that was the one in the news media when Leah was making her plea, that wasn't crying. She was just standing there. Just kind of odd to us, but okay. So Carol Bernhardt, she has made appearances on the news randomly on the anniversary a few times. So is the aunt and so is the cousin. Leah hasn't. Now, the thing with Carol is that she's clearly not talking. She's 83 years old. She's not going to be around much longer. And our feeling is that if she knows what really happened, and if Zach is truly still missing, and I mean that as in the family, like nobody knows where he's at, and she has knowledge that can help locate him, then she needs to talk about that before she dies. Because believe me, hell is brutal. Okay? Now, if she really has no idea, then she would be open to people wanting to come in and help. Well, we will tell you that early on in this investigation, Protect Your Children reached out to her and offered to hold a rally of sorts, a music festival that we did every year to raise awareness on predators. And we offered to make Zachary the highlight of that festival. And we're talking thousands of people would come to this. And not interested. Not interested at all. Didn't want nothing to do with it, which we find is very strange. In any case, she was on the news media some years back, and they asked her how she deals with this every day and how she goes on with her life and without Zach being there. And she went on to make a comment that still to this day really irks us. It irks a lot of people. We're not alone in this. And we're trying to come up with some rationale. Now, before I play this for you, I want to let you know that Carol Bernhardt believes Leah's story. Carol Bernhardt believes that a predator was, I guess, hanging around the apartment, waited for Leah to leave for a few minutes, went to the apartment, found the door unlocked, got past their dog, by the way. They had a dog. The neighbors that said they were up didn't hear the dog barking or making a ruckus. So this person found the door unlocked. They got past the dog. They went upstairs, found Zachary in the bed, picked him up, carried him out of the house, and just put him in a vehicle, I guess, and took off. Without him screaming, waking up, dog barking, nothing. Carol believes that story. She believes, Leah, that that's exactly what happened. And then she says this, okay? Which just is awkward.
I live with this feeling that if you took my grandson to raise him and you raised him right, that's good. But if you took him to be mean, I hope he did. It's hard to say. But I hope he's up with God.
Play that one more time.
I live with this feeling that if you took my grandson to raise him and you raised him right, that's good. But if you took him to be mean, I hope he did. It's hard to say. But I hope he's up with God.
That is odd. Now remember, she believes that this predator came and kidnapped her grandson. What could possibly lead her to say, if you took my grandson to love him basically and raise him right, then that's good? Now we get the other part. The other part is if you took him to hurt him, well then, I mean, it's still weird that she'd say she hopes he's dead, but I guess it's better than thinking that he might be struggling, going through hell. But the first part is what gets us. What do you all think about that? Is that a normal thing to say? If you believe a predator kidnapped your grandson in the middle of the night, ripped him away from his mother, what part of you thinks that they could possibly have taken him to raise him right, to love him, to treat him good? That just doesn't make any sense. Now, when you combine that, though, with another theory, which aligns with the Savannah Trace argument, that somebody connected to the family took Zach to raise him right and raise him good because Leah wasn't, and you think that that's what happened, and then you find out later that that's not exactly what happened at all, that this person actually harmed Zach and sold him into sex trafficking and abused him, then she wishes he's dead because she don't want to think about him going through that. But maybe who took him was supposed to raise him right. Maybe they were supposed to take care of him. Is that a possibility? And again, we're not accusing the grandma of anything, but that's just our thoughts. What do you think? Next person up is Billy Joe Jimenez. This is Zachary's aunt. She's been vocal. She does post every year on her social media about Zachary missing, the age progression photo. She briefly, after he disappeared, started a not-for-profit called Missing Kids A to Z, where I guess she was attempting to create a not-for-profit that I guess would help find missing kids or something. Okay, at least she was trying to do something. That not-for-profit didn't go anywhere. It folded. Nothing became of it. But she tried. Now again, she's on the news and she's talking about how the police need to stop looking at Leah. There was a video she had said, and this was about 16 years after he went missing, where she said, like I've told the police, after 16 years, is it time to look at a different angle? Well, what do you mean? What angle? Do you have any ideas? And why stop looking at Leah? But she didn't elaborate. We will tell you that probably coincidentally, Billy Joe's husband is Mexican and has family and some relatives down in Mexico. We're just saying that's kind of a weird connection considering the Mexico man living across the border of Texas in Mexico. That resembles Zachary. Just wanted to throw that out there. Not accusing her of anything or the husband, but it does seem kind of weird. Next player here is Kevin Jalbert. We heard about him. This is the pedo who met with an undercover detective and told of his fantasies of hurting kids. And then he says he took a boy from Savannah Trace Apartments. He points out the apartment that he took the kid from, and it wasn't Zachary's. He described the kid that he took as wearing Scooby-Doo, underpants or whatever. And according again to Leah, that's not what Zach was wearing. So the police kind of just dismissed him. We're hoping, for the love of God, that they raided this guy's home, which we know they did because they found the porno stuff on his computer. But I'm sure they did DNA. I'm sure they looked every which way to see if maybe Zach had been there, any indication, any connection, and they ruled him out as not being connected. Polygraph was inconclusive if he had something to do with it or not. So they quickly said, no, we don't think he was involved in Zach's case. And by the way, this is a guy who has wild fantasies according to his family. You know, he says that he, you know, before he got arrested, obviously, he's got 40 years in prison now. But he claimed that he would eat breakfast with, you know, former Secretary General Colin Powell. And, you know, this guy, he's apparently got a lot of mental issues, you know. So take that for what you will. But the police do not believe that he was involved. Now, what we will tell you, and this is very strange as we look at this article here. This is from Investigation Discovery, who, by the way, has done a couple of great pieces on Zachary. Says here, the police appeared to get a break in the case in 2001 when an informant notified police that a man named Kevin Jalbert, who resided near Zach's apartment complex, okay, had been bragging about being a child. You can read it on the screen, and he was in search of a new victim. Okay. The police had an undercover cop track Jalbert's movements, and Jalbert bragged to the cop that he had abducted and hurt, we'll say, read it on the screen, over 1,000 children, which, there you go, that's just nuts, right? And claimed to have killed 5. Jalbert pointed directly to Zach's apartment complex during a drive and said he had kidnapped a child from there. But the police later claimed that Jalbert pointed to the wrong apartment. Okay. Also, Jalbert said the child he had abducted was wearing Mickey Mouse underwear and Scooby-Doo pajamas, while Zach had been wearing boxer shorts at the time of his disappearance. Again, that's according to Leah. And finally, Jalbert's DNA did not match any evidence found at the scene. Okay. Clear that out. When questioned by police, Jalbert denied having abducted Zach. Police did find a receipt indicating that Jalbert dropped waste at a landfill 2 weeks after Zachary's disappearance. Now, they scoured the landfill and found no trace of Zachary. Now, remember, this was in late 2001. This was almost a year or so after Zach disappeared. So, of course, there's going to be nothing in the landfill, but apparently they searched it anyway. And I know from crime shows, we're like, crap, he went to a landfill. He dropped off waste 2 weeks after Zach disappeared. He probably had Zach in the bag and brought him to the landfill. Yeah, that's the quick way to look at it. But is there any evidence or any proof of that? None whatsoever. None whatsoever. So investigators could not conclusively link Jalbert to Zachary's disappearance, but they did find child pornography, we'll say, at his home. And he's currently behind bars serving a 40-year sentence for his crimes. Okay? So that's Kevin Jalbert. You all still with me out there? Hopefully you're still with me. We're zipping right through this stuff. Let me share this guy with you. Who is this guy? If you guys watched last week, then you will see this face again. This is where things get very interesting. And I want to tell you ahead of time, this show is going to go a little long tonight, probably 10:15, 10:30. But we want to get this in because it's probably the last show, unless there's some breaking news that we're going to do on Zach until the anniversary in September. But this guy, his name is Timothy Elfman. Tim Elfman lived at 5451 Broach Road in Orlando. Interesting enough, when we first found out about this guy, the person, which you're going to see the video here in a minute, didn't want to release the guy's last name. And we had communication with the YouTuber that posted the story about Zach and talked about this man. And we did go on that YouTuber's channel, actually. We did a live show with him about Zachary, and you can find that also on the website, protectyourchildren.org, under Zachary Bernhardt videos. But he did not want this man's last name to be found. He gave the address of where the guy lived, which it took like 2 seconds to go to the property appraiser's office to find out who lived there. But he tried very hard not to tell people the last name of this man. We're not exactly sure why. And when we went out on a limb and posted the last name of this guy on the YouTube video, he quickly deleted the comment and sent us an email going, I can't believe you said the guy's last name. Almost like he was, I don't know, scared that people would do something. I don't know. Well, this man is deceased, okay? And we're going to get into that. This man died in March of 2018. God rest his soul, okay? March of 2018. I want you to remember that, okay? Because it's very interesting. And this here, by the way, is the obituary. You can see that he died on March 13th. What we're about to show you is testimony from a security guard for Lockheed Martin at the time. And this was in 2015, 2016, 17, 18, throughout those years. This man, Timothy Elfman, died March 13th. You can see on the screen, 2018. This security guard gives testimony that he met Zachary Bernhardt living with this man, Timothy Elfman, on Broche Road in Orlando, 2015 to 2016. You're going to hear his testimony in a minute. Now, that security guard, okay, in 2018, so a year and a half, 2 years later, comes across the ID Discovery show for Zachary Bernhardt, and he says, wait a minute, what? Zachary Bernhardt? I met that guy. 2015, 2016. So he calls Clearwater Police. You'll hear that in a minute. He calls the police and he tells them, like, hey, Zachary Bernhardt was staying with this guy, Timothy Elfman, over on Broche Road in 2015, 2016, right? 16 years after Zach disappeared. So that puts him, what, 23, 24 years old? Still alive. Well, he calls the police on March 7th. March 13th, 6 days later, Timothy Elfman dies. Unexpectedly passed away. Do we know how? No. Can't get that information. But it is kind of strange that Leah gets an eviction notice and then 6 days later, Zach disappears. The security guard calls the police on this Timothy Elfman guy, and 6 days later, he's dead. Well, he's not talking. Very strange. What do you think? I think it's very odd. What you're about to hear now, and this is kind of long, but it goes pretty quick. This is the security guard on this YouTube channel. It's weird. It's called Officer UFO. It's because the guy does security. So that's where he got it from. And he looks into these paranormal things, whatever. But for some strange reason, he did a couple of videos on Zach's disappearance. And he claims that the reason why he did that is because this security guard and him worked together. And the security guard told him, hey, there's this Zachary Bernhardt thing. And he told him what happened. And so this guy decides to do a video about Zachary. Of course, we come across it, start communicating with the guy. But this is the video of the security guard who remained anonymous, which is interesting. So his voice is disguised and he's behind a thing there. You can see that you're not going to see his face, but his voice is disguised. This is kind of creepy, but when you listen to this, things seem to tie in. So let's check this out. It's 10 minutes long, but stay with us because this is very interesting. And we would like to know what the police did to investigate this angle. But let's listen to what the security guard had to say.
I'm a security officer in Orlando, Florida. Around 2015, 2016, I met Tim, who's now deceased. Tim was a supervisor at Lockheed Martin in Orlando. He hired me to build an apartment in his 3-car garage. He wanted it converted to a 2-car garage with a small apartment. The location was 5451 Broche Road in Orlando. Tim claimed he was co-owner of the property with one of his co-workers from Lockheed Martin. I drove a patrol vehicle I used for security patrols where I worked. One day while I was at his property, he introduced me to Zach, explaining that he wanted to reassure Zach that I'm not a police officer. Zach was helping a man mow the lawn at Tim's property. The man was a short white male who appeared to be in his 50s. He drove a red pickup truck he used to transport his lawnmowers. Tim always drank and used hardcore drugs. There was no drug he didn't do, and he did the very worst. He asked me if I drank or did drugs, and I don't, and that made him uncomfortable. I told him I'm aware of the medicinal benefits of marijuana, and that I was part of the Morgan & Morgan push to legalize marijuana, but I told him I quit, and he pressured me a little and encouraged me to smoke. He said that Zach could get me good sativa at a low price. So I said, okay. So I'm sitting there with Zach in the main house at 5451 Brosh Road. Zach called or texted his marijuana contact, and now we're waiting for the marijuana. Zach was playing a video game on his phone, and he suggested that I save his phone number as a future marijuana contact. So I enter his number into my phone to save him as a contact, and I ask him what his last name is, and he replied, Bernhardt. Then a moment later, as an afterthought, he adds, I wasn't supposed to tell you that. When I asked him why, he replied, you don't know? And of course, at the time, I had no idea that what he was talking about, and I was unaware that he was reported as a missing child back in 2000, the day before 9/11. One day I'm working on the garage apartment, and I can hear Tim telling Zach over the phone that because Zach owed him money, Zach would have to do whatever Tim wanted for as long as he wanted. The more I got to know Tim, the more I could see his predatory nature, trying to manipulate people or exploit them. He loved saying people owed him something. He would later say I owed him money when in fact he owed me money. He constantly talked about how he was gay, and he constantly used the racist N-word and expressed racial hatred, which I found ironic because when he needed drugs, he got them from a black guy he pretended to like. I didn't like his character, and I would try to limit my conversations with him and kind of distance myself from Tim. I even started charging him more to work on the garage apartment. One evening after I was working on the garage apartment, I was spraying my vehicle off because it was covered in sawdust, and Tim walked right through the spray and then confronted me about it. So I said, you walked into the spray, Einstein, whose fault is that? Then he did something he shouldn't have done, and Tim invoked the name of my best friend and mentor, who has passed away into the spiritual world. This man was a sniper for the U.S. Army in Vietnam. He was an expert hunter, an expert gardener. He helped people and never exploited anyone. Tim, on the other hand, was a liar and a coward, so it infuriated me when he invoked Michael's name, and I made him agree to never say the name again, and I never worked for him again after that. But a year and a half later, I'm watching TV, and ID Discovery was showing Disappeared, Season 8, Episode 8, entitled About a Boy. I didn't watch it the first time it aired. This was a repeat episode, and it covered the disappearance of missing person Zachary Bernhardt, who disappeared in 2000 as a child. And I remembered meeting Zach at Tim's house and him accidentally telling me his last name is Bernhardt when I saved him as a contact. And there were other things that I recognized. He looked 100% like the childhood photos, but nothing at all like the computer-generated age-enhanced image. The only similarity with the computer-generated image is hair color. They look absolutely nothing alike, especially the lower face and jaw. The computer-generated image is of a person at least average size, if not bigger than average, white American. The Zachary Bernhardt I met is a little guy, smaller than an average white male his age. He was short, around 5'5", maybe 125 pounds. He wasn't skinny, but he was small, extremely well-behaved and well-mannered, very kind and friendly. In 2018, all of this information was given to Clearwater Police Department. 6 days later, Tim was deceased. Detective Collymore played phone tag with me briefly, and then I never heard back from her. I'm choosing to remain anonymous. You're the only one I'm giving a statement to other than the police, and so your audience knows that's because I know you from working together in security.
And I appreciate that. And now you have agreed to come on the show. I practically had to beg you. And the reason I wanted to have you on, even though I covered this a little in a previous video, is to give the audience a little context for the upcoming live stream I'm having later this month, covering the Zachary Bernhardt missing person cold case. Christopher Gelson will be my guest. His organization is Protect Your Children, Inc., and he urged me to do a live stream covering Zach's case, and I agreed. It is scheduled for December 18th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There will be live chat, and I will also have the option to invite people to call on Skype at the end. I can understand why you want to remain anonymous. Why put yourself out there? Your experience with Zach and talking about that experience is one thing, but then you're getting into how you met Zach and the circumstances. The person you met him through is deceased now, and you admitted to smoking marijuana. Oh no. So now you know some people will dismiss what you said for that reason. And I've worked with you before, and we investigated identity theft cases, which is another reason to remain anonymous and be careful. Plus, we're going back in time. It's an old case, and you only knew Zach for a year or so, and that was 5 years ago. Before we finish, is there anything else you can tell the audience about Zach, the Zach that you met in Orlando?
The Zachary Bernhardt I met had family in the Orlando area who he stayed with on and off. Tim mentioned that in the past, Zach lived with him at 5451 Brosh Road at one point. One time while Tim was exploiting Zach, he said he was going to tell Carol if Zach disobeyed him, as if Carol would tell Zach to obey him. Well, it turns out Carol Bernhardt, grandmother of the missing child, lives in Winter Park, Florida, and anyone who knows Florida knows Winter Park is part of the greater Orlando area. I met a woman Tim told me was Zach's mother. She had blonde hair and her first name started with the letter B. She was dating a black gentleman who was Tim's drug dealer. I'm certain Zach sold me his marijuana. Zach was not a drug dealer. He was what's referred to as a middleman. The white woman had at least 2 small children with this man, who I took to be Zach's younger half-brother and younger half-sister. One time Zach moved out of Florida for work, but returned within weeks for whatever reason. There was information on the possibility that Zach grew long hair or dreads and is in a different state now, but that hasn't been verified. And I want to say, I'm not looking for Zach. That's not my job or my business or my responsibility. And if I knew where he was now, I would contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And Zach, if you're out there and you hear this, I have a positive opinion of you based on the short time I knew you. My advice to you is be independent. Think for yourself. Don't be afraid. You can call 1-800-843-7678, or online you can go to report.cybertip.org. That's report.cybertip.org, and say you're missing person Zachary Bernhardt. You would like to come forward to close your case. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. No one can force you to tell your story if you don't want to. No one has to get arrested if that's what you're worried about. It will make you a stronger person, and you'll be better off in life if you aren't a missing person. Being a missing person is just another thing someone can use to exploit you. You will be better off, and you will get even more support if you come forward to authorities. It doesn't have to be publicly. For any family or friends of the deceased Tim, I have forgiven him for any wrong he has done, but for some reason he never wanted anyone talking to the neighbors. If you're facing his property to the right of his property, for some reason he never wanted anyone talking to those neighbors. So apparently he had some kind of a history with them. I don't know what.
Okay, we're out of time, and I want to thank you for being on the show. Have a great night.
Wow. So, where do we start? Where do we start with this? Interesting that the information that we received from the mom of the second boy, that Savannah Trace Apartments were arguing in court about Leah and about drugs. The mom of the second boy had never talked to this guy. She never shared that information with anybody but us. And of course, we found that out. And it's like, that was interesting because what this security guard is saying seems to corroborate what she was saying. Okay, now he implicates Carol Bernhardt, the grandmother. He says that Tim knew Carol, or at least Tim made Zach think he knew Carol. He says he did call the police, the Clearwater police, talk to a detective, Collymore, which we've been able to find out was a detective there, but shortly after that was removed for whatever reason. So that part is true. We have basically corroborated a lot of this guy's story. Now, we don't know who he is, obviously, because he remained anonymous. But we believe him. We believe he's telling the truth here. Now, the obituary for Timothy Elfman, of course, is glowing. I mean, they're not going to say anything bad about him. You know, loving guy, veteran, makes spaghetti dinners for the vets, helps out all the time, great guy, 30 years, Lockheed Martin, terrific, all-American guy, never did anything wrong, didn't have a spot on his record. That's how they make it sound. Well, this security guard clearly had some different interactions with Timothy Elfman. Okay? And interesting enough, we did do some research on Timothy Elfman, and he did have a prior charge that involved a related sexual issue. We'll just leave it at that. Not to spit on the man's grave. But we think that this guy is telling the truth. Now, he says that he played phone tag with this detective. We had communication with Officer UFO, the guy who has the channel, privately after this. And he said that the police never came out to the security guard's house. They never came and talked to Officer UFO. It's like they just said, okay, we'll pass on the information. And 6 days later, Tim's dead. And there's no follow-up. We did confirm that Officer UFO, after this, a year or so later, he also sent all this information to Clearwater Police again and the FBI. And he got the same response. Thanks, we'll pass it on. But that's it. No information, of course, if it panned out to anything. We just have to assume it didn't because it's an open case. But do we know if they really investigated this as thoroughly as they could? Because if they did, you realize what this means. This means that Zachary Bernhardt was alive and well. I don't know about well, but he was alive 2015, 2016. 15 or 16 years after he disappeared. 23, 24 years old. He was still alive and staying in the Orlando area where other members of his family lived. And it's actually where his mother lives now. That is huge. You'd think that would make the news. But we never heard a peep about it. So what are the police doing? Do we know? Not a thing. Could they at least come out and say we received a tip for a person in Orlando? We looked into it, and there was unfortunately nothing. No, they're not saying anything. So we don't know what happened with that. There's more information on this on our videos. Zachary Bernhardt missing on our website. You can find all the videos there. All right, a few more really quick here. This is the Mexico man. Interesting enough, and you heard Steve Gans, he's with Enigma Web Productions. He was on the News Nation report. So what actually happened, and listen, we want everybody working together to find Zach, okay? But what actually happened was we received a message this couple years back now from somebody who's part of an amateur sleuthing group. They sent us a link to a page for lost and missing in Ocampo, Mexico. That is a little town south of Texas in the state of Coahuila. Now, they sent us this link. We opened it up and we seen these pictures of this guy. And we're like, holy mackerel, does he resemble Zach? Now, the security guard was trying to say, look, the first thing I realized is the age progressions didn't look anything like Zach, and they're totally off except for the hair, right? So it seems to kind of dismiss it. But of course, the story at the beginning, the guy that was missing for 32 years, you know, we saw his age progression and it looked very similar to how the man looked now or then at that time. But you look at the age progression and you look at these images of this man and you're looking at the blonde hair, you're looking at the blue eyes, you're looking at the bridge of the nose. By the way, you're looking at a scar on the bridge of the nose, which Zachary had one right in between the eyes and one on the bridge of his nose. Okay. You look at that smile, that lower lip where it kind of puffs out there. Leah has that. Okay. The age progression shows that. We think there's a very, very strong chance that this man is Zachary Bernhardt. And we are still looking into this angle. Now, we have heard from another lady who runs another group, and she claims to have talked to this man's mother, you know, excuse me, and that it's not Zach. They know who it is. And, you know, end of that, they think that that closes it. Well, that's not good enough for us. And we had communication with her and said, did you verify the information that the mother gave you? No response. Now, we will tell you something about this man, okay? This man, the Mexico man we call him, after we received the link with the images, we paid through some generous donations of people. We paid for some pretty extensive advertising all throughout Ocampo, Mexico. I mean, we plastered the whole area, social media, Facebook, Instagram, looking for information on this guy. Did anybody have conversations with him? Did anybody know anything about him? Was he still there? So on and so forth. And I'm telling you, we received hundreds of comments from people. And we heard from people that messaged us directly. We heard from a man who gave this guy some water, and there's a picture out there of him holding a bottle of water, you know, with his thumb up, similar to this one. The man told us that he talked to this man, and this man said that he was from California, that his family was dead, okay, and that he was traveling toward Monterey because there were more English-speaking people there that he could get to know. But he also told this man that he had to be careful to not get caught by the authorities because they would escort him back to America because people are looking for him there. This is what he told the man who gave him a bottle of water. So he was staying in that area of Mexico. And if you know anything about that Ocampo area, there's an area there where a lot of fugitives from America, people that are wanted, they kind of live down there, stays off the radar. The police look the other way. And then we heard from another person who said that they talked to him. And that this guy said he didn't really remember who he was, but that he wanted to make sure he didn't go back to America. Now, listen, you put all that together, and you look at the appearance, the resemblance, the same kind of smile, the blue eyes, the blonde hair, the bridge of the nose. And then you put that with what we heard from the people, and we have no reason to believe they're lying. And it looks like this could be Zachary. Now, there was another image that they showed in the News Nation clip what appears to be the same man, but not looking good at all. Very thin, very flamboyant, maybe on some drugs. We're not completely convinced that those two images are the same person, because the guy here is from a couple of years ago. He looks like he's in pretty good health. He's not using drugs. He's not drinking. He's smiling in this picture here. Thumbs up. Very nice guy, like the security guard said of the Zachary Bernhardt that he met. Very nice, very friendly. But what do we make of it? Well, we're still investigating this angle. Now, the news did cover this, as you saw in News Nation. And there was a local news report that also covered it. And the funny thing is Steve Gans was on there from Enigma Web Productions, And we're kind of like, hey, we broke the story here, I'm just playing with you. We don't really care who they give credit to. The point is that it's out there now. And now the police actually came out on this one. They released a statement. And actually, I think they actually did a small interview with the news. And they said that they were not able to gain any traction from the photos. They weren't able to follow up on it at all. Now, again, do we know? Did they call Mexico? Did they call Ocampo police and say, can you find this guy for us? We think he might be a missing kid from, 20-something years ago. We don't know what they did. They just said they weren't able to get traction on the pictures. The end of story. End of story. Well, we continue to hear from people down there. We connected with a woman who works with an organization down there. And she was we were on the phone with her, and she was out looking for him in that area while we were on the phone with her. Couldn't locate him. But we're continuing to work this angle. Which brings us to the Clearwater Police Department. That's our other player in all of this. How much more do they know? And sometimes you have to weigh it, right? You got to say, well, they don't want to release certain information because it could compromise the case, or the information could get into the hands of the people that actually hurt Zach. We understand that. But at the same time, maybe there is information that can be released that can help the public, help them find Zach. Maybe they can vet an organization like ours or Enigma Web Productions, for crying out loud. Vet somebody. Prove that they're good, they're clear, don't worry. And let them work with the police to help locate Zach. But the police are very, very tight-lipped about this case, even 24 years later. And even back in 2017, and we talked about this last week, 17 years after Zach disappeared, they reissued the Amber Alerts, all the billboards and the phones. Whoop, 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 missing Amber Alert, missing child. I remember seeing it. I'm like, for Zach? They must have a tip. Something prompted them to reissue the Amber Alert 17 years later, all throughout Florida, everywhere. So clearly they still believe he is alive, as we do. Did they give the reason for reissuing the Amber Alert? No. Coincidentally, his mom and her new husband moved back to Orlando. They moved to Orlando, actually, from Hawaii in the same month, December of 2017. We'll have you know that Leah and her husband, Scott, they moved 15 minutes away from where Timothy Elfman, the deceased guy, lived. Very strange, but okay, because Orlando's a pretty big place. But they ended up not far from where Timothy Elfman lived, where Zach apparently was staying. Does Leah coming back to Orlando or coming back to Florida have something to do with reissuing the Amber Alert? We'd like to know. But we don't know. What do you think? Do you think it has something to do with her coming back to the area? Or do you think there was a sighting, credible tip? What reason would they reissue an Amber Alert 17 years later? And not again since then. Clearwater Police don't give no information. We'll show you here that we did a FOIA request once again today. Actually, they got back to us pretty quick. We submitted a Freedom of Information request. We kind of figured it would get denied, but just for the record, we just asked for the incident report from 9/11/2000 involving Leah Hackett at the Drew Street address. Nothing more. And within 10 minutes, they replied saying the report you requested is an open investigation. Right? Let me make this bigger for y'all. The report you requested is an open investigation pursuant to Section 11907, Florida statutes. Active criminal intelligence information and criminal investigative information are not releasable to the public. This record request is closed. You'll need to check back at a later date for an updated status. Please be aware that each case is unique and can take days, even months before it can be released. How about 24 years? Yeah, this case is 24 years old, and they still won't release anything. There's a good possibility that the people that were involved might already passed on. But they're not releasing no information, but we're trying. There's so much here, and we're going to close this out here in a few minutes. So thank you for sticking with us through this show. There's so much here, but the reality is we believe there are people close to this case that know what happened. Somebody asked us yesterday, where do we fall? Like, what do we think actually happened? You know, we try to stay away from that. You know, partly because we're not trying to tell the public what we're investigating right now. We're not trying to give heads up to whoever's watching and listening. But we will tell you that we're looking at two angles, two theories. Do we think the family knows more? Absolutely. Not saying they 100% do, but we feel like they do. Do we think it's possible that the kidnapping was a hoax, that it was a setup for sympathy and attention and money? It's a possibility. We're not telling you which one we're falling down on, but we're just going to go through the quick possibilities here. Leah had a history of lying. She had told one of Zach's teachers that her mother, Carol, had died. But she did. She said, her mother died, and everyone went, oh man, sorry to hear that. No, Carol's still alive even today, 83 years old, still kicking. She told another landlord of a place she used to live that she had breast cancer, and she was, woman cancer. She never did. So she had a history of lying, not being honest, and trying to get attention and sympathy from people. Could she have staged this and things went wrong? Who knows? Could the family had arranged it to have Zach taken from her because they did not want her raising him because she had moved 11 times in 14 years? Is that possible? Sure is. Possibility. Is it possible that it was arranged for someone to take care of Zach and raise him right, as Grandma said, and love him and be good to him? Because Leah couldn't and wasn't. And then that person ended up exploiting Zach and hurting Zach. Could that be what the grandmother meant? It's a possibility. All these are possibilities. We have our favorites. But all these angles need to be looked at. And we feel like the police haven't looked anywhere close to these theories. It's almost like they went with, they don't believe Leah's story. We know that. They came out and said that on the news, that they think she knows more. That she's not telling them everything. The police detectives have even said that. But is that enough to charge her with a crime? Apparently not. Nope. What is this, like the perfect crime? Where there's no DNA, there's no struggle, there's no break-in, there's no dog barking, no one saw nothing, and the little boy just disappears and is never heard from again? On a busy street, Drew Street in Clearwater, Florida? It just doesn't make any sense. But clearly, like we said before, detectives are not investigating this case anymore. If you call and give them a tip, they'll look into it. But I'll tell you what we've done the last 3 years is so much more than the police have done. Using social media to help find missing kids and gathering information and making connections. God, the police haven't done anything near that. And we're just a small nonprofit organization surviving on donations from you great people. If a detective or two would actually get back on this case for a little bit, contact us. We'll share everything we got. Maybe they could locate Zach. They're not going to do that. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Again, Zachary Bernhardt missing on our website, Protect Your Children Incorporated, protectyourchildren.org, protectyourchildren.org. All the information on Zachary. We look forward to your comments. Please, please like and subscribe. That does make a difference in the algorithms and our reach. Please share the story about Zach. Share the videos. Share his picture. Talk to coworkers about this case. If you know anybody in Clearwater, Florida, bring it up. Do not let the public forget about Zachary. He deserves to have a life. His life was screwed up by no fault of his own. And Zach, if you hear this, and then that means you've heard this before. You are loved by this organization and you are loved by a lot of people. And what happened to you was not your fault. And we don't know if you're protecting people or if you're full of shame or if you're hiding, why you're hiding from the police. We don't know. But if you hear this, please come forward. Or even contact us anonymously, privately, just whatever. Just people need to know that you're okay. But Zach, you're loved. You have help available to you. We have resources to help you, to protect you, to provide for you if you need it. It's available. Like the security guard said, if you're living on the run, that's no life at all. Maybe you have been adopted. Maybe you're living under a different name. Maybe you'll check missing kids websites and realize, hey, that's me. Like the other guy at the beginning, who knows? But Zach, you're loved. Don't ever give up. Don't give up. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to help us to reach more people to find Zach, you can do that. Go to our website, protectyourchildren.org. Click on the donation button. You can help us by making a donation tax deductible. We will use that money. If you say you want to have it for specifically for Zachary Bernhardt, you just let us know when you send it in via the website. Say it's for Zachary, and we'll use it only for Zachary. We'll use it to promote. We'll use it to travel, maybe travel to Mexico. Who knows? We will use it for that purpose. If you want to help us locate Zach, if you want to get some closure to this case, please donate today and help us out because we have very, very limited resources. We can't do a whole lot. We need your help to do it. All right. That's it for this week. It's been Protect Your Children Incorporated. Thank you for staying on with us. It's been a long, long time for Zach, but we believe he's still alive. And we thank you for being here. Please, like we said, share this podcast. Share the podcast of this live show. It's available in about 15 or 20 minutes after it's done uploading and processing. You know how that goes. And we'll be posting about the next few days. Thank you again for being here. And until next week, protect your kids. Stay nosy. Keep your eye on them. Behavior changes, look into them. Don't just discipline so fast. Ask yourself what's going on. Ask the right questions. Love your kids. Because they can be gone in an instant. They sure can. Till next week, God bless and thank you.